And I see the audio is going for me. Is the audio going for you?
Hello. Is it recording me? Yay.
So it's the day after Christmas, and we thought we would do a show. I don't know if this is going to be the last show of the year. It might be. We still have like 2 other shows banked.
Well, you know what? I just would like to address the obvious elephant in the room. I'm a little underdressed. You're a little more business casual to my pajama outfits.
Well, let's be honest. I mean, number one, I'm looking at the camera and I'm blending in with everything because like it's not nearly as bright behind me as it is for you. But I'm wearing the exact same thing I was wearing yesterday. So if that makes you feel better, I will admit I literally woke up and I put the same clothes on that I threw on the floor as I went to bed last night.
Yeah.
So Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
I'm gonna tweak something just out of curiosity.
Oh, Greg, it's just bothering you, isn't it?
Happened.
What are you doing?
I'm just trying to distribute the light a little bit more for
their viewing pleasure.
Well, for people that are watching on YouTube, I know the people that are listening couldn't care less right now.
You're welcome.
So, yeah, people are listening still. People are watching. I thought what we would do is talk about this past year and look forward to the next year a little bit. This past year was definitely an interesting one for Rosary. I mean, we took the break from podcasting, but I felt like it was so necessary to really do concentrated strategy work. And we've talked a lot about that, and I don't want to get into it again. But, you know, as we've been doing the giving campaign right now, it's left me with a lot of punctuated moments of self-doubt. Like there was a bad decision to do that because the donations are down and that kind of thing. But then, like the other day, I got an email from Coley, who's been one of our longtime supporters.
Coley.
And
That
Coley
was an amazing email.
I don't want to share personal information because I don't think he meant for it to be a public email. But dude, congrats.
Congratulations.
We were super excited, and we shared your email with Mac and Catherine. And
the first thing they said was, where's our email?
Yeah, why didn't he call? Yeah. Why didn't he email us and tell us? But the reason why I bring up Coley's email, one thing he said in it, I just want to find it. Oh shoot! Because he said basically, I'm going to have to paraphrase it because I can't find. He basically said, "I'm glad you took the. I'm glad you didn't podcast for those months, and I'm glad you're back." Well, I will. You know what? I am going to share this. Coley, I hope you're okay.
Okay.
He said, "Hi, Greg. I hope you're doing well and that the giving campaign is wrapping up okay. I'm sort of sorry I haven't turned my attention to this before now, but I spent October and November on my honeymoon, blissfully unconnected to the digital world. In the last couple of weeks, finally moving in with my now wife." Congrats. We are so happy for you, Coley, that you got married. He says, "It's an exciting new chapter in our lives, and I feel like I am better prepared to be a husband and Lord willing father because of all these years I've spent being virtually mentored by Rosary Army." And that really hit me hard. That I wrote this down today. You know, we had a great Christmas day yesterday. And I wrote down, why is it so hard for me to acknowledge when something is good and when good things happen? Why is it so hard? And I think it's because I have a lifetime of anytime something good happened, it normally meant I was going to lose it. Like I was going to lose that good thing. And even though you and I have been married 29 years, I haven't lost you yet. You know, that there was this built-in programmed lesson that was put into me from an early age and then reinforced throughout my life that when I finally got something good, it was going to be taken away. That anytime there's a good, there's going to be a loss. And that's not necessarily true. We're always going to have suffering, but where I'm going with this is, you know, I think, you know, yesterday, here we had this great day, and I just immediately assume I'm going to pay a cost for it. There's going to be something I'm going to have to pay for, either emotionally or physically or financially or spiritually. There's going to be comeuppance, and it's. I'm not saying it's right at all.
This is just what's happening in your
It's just
brain.
what's happening.
Yeah.
And one thing that Coley's email made me think about was that, oh, here it is. He put it at the bottom. He says, "Thank you for taking a break and for coming back both. It's great to hear y'all's voices again, and I look forward to hearing your exploration of the next chapter of your lives." We took that break, and it was super useful in terms of reorienting our mission and my focus and my desire to really double down on promoting the Rosary. But I have been worried ever since we took that podcasting break over the summer that there's going to be a price to pay for it now in the giving campaign that we do during Advent and up to the end of the year. And then back to my point of, and things get reinforced in my brain, right or wrong, because we've raised so much less this year than we did the last 2 years. I'm going, see, this is what my brain is doing and what the devil and the evil one is whispering in my ear. See. So Coley's email, and I'm just using his as an example. We've received a lot of emails from a lot of you, and thank you very much, because it's been encouraging. And there have been notes with the donations that have come in. But I love, he says, "I feel like I am better prepared to be a husband and, Lord willing, father because of all these years I've spent being virtually mentored by Rosary Army." And one of the things that we've used to describe our work this year during our giving campaign is like, we have the core mission, make them, pray them, give them away, promoting the Rosary. But then there's this educational arm of what we do that's more nebulous and harder to describe to donors.
Well,
this is
what do we do?
We do this thing where we make people feel like they can live this faith.
Yes, and if I could add to perhaps explain what motivated Coley to say those words to us, because we didn't ask him to share what Rosary Army meant to him.
Yeah.
I mean, he just volunteered that to us as this mentoring position and this idea of mentorship that I haven't really considered before in terms of what the podcasting does through our conversations. And as we let our personal lives just drip out slowly in the content in our shows, like we don't really try to hit that on the nose all the time, but we allow it to seep out when it's right. And how it must be to be on the receiving end of that when you feel like you're alone or you feel like no one else understands me.
Right.
And then you realize you're not alone and that the suffering is everywhere. It's universal. We're all in pain about something and it's hard. And we reach out looking for little hopeful tidbits and we forget that sometimes we are that hope to listeners because we don't see ourselves that way sometimes. And this idea of mentorship plays in and dovetails nicely with the idea of formation. And we all need to be working on our formation, how we rely and stand on the idea and concept of virtues. The reason why the church, outlines them is so that we don't forget that they're there and that we can check ourselves periodically to see, well, how am I formed in virtue? And the reason why we want to be formed in virtue is because it aids us in navigating suffering. That's like the church's gift to you to help you get through your particular walk in suffering, whether it be through illness, loss, financial, all of it. And believe me, those are the pain points we received in the prayer requests that we asked for during Advent.
I don't even know if we talked about that.
We wanted to know, well, what can we pray about? And that's what came back was, tons of financial. Like that was
hold on.
Top of the list.
You got to explain that. So,
Right.
because not everyone who watches or listens to the podcast gets the email. I sent out an email, and we've done this in the past. And it's very hard for me to do this, but every time I do it, it's a blessing. It's hard because it's a technical hassle. The technology keeps changing for what's the best way of being able to collect. If I say, hey, we want to pray for you, for people to submit their prayer requests and for us to get them and for me to have a list. And so I had sent out an email saying, we want to pray for you. And that we were, I didn't know you were going to do it as well. And I'm really glad you did. That I said I was going to take your prayer requests, and I'm going to go up to the Adoration Chapel at a parish nearby where they have perpetual adoration, or 5 days of adoration a week. Go up there, and I'm going to just go through the list. God bless this person, and here's their prayer intention. And this person, and this prayer intention. I've done it in the past, and it took me a long time to get through the list. And this year there were, I don't know, about 100 requests came through the system. And you said, well, you wanted to go up, and you asked me if I could print it out, which I don't normally do. I just take my iPad up, and I have them all on a spreadsheet. But I'm glad I had the piece of paper, because then I kind of I was underlining things that people said, and I was highlighting things, and I was kind of circling words. But to be able to pray for someone, this is something, another blessing of the giving campaign. I've written about this the last couple of days in my journal. So this year, as of right now, we've raised just over $66,000 in donations and pledges. So that doesn't mean we have $66,000 on hand to operate for the next year. So that's almost $130 something thousand short of what we need. And I'm like, well, I'm highly motivated right now to do more work for Rosary. I'm like, so maybe God's allowing it to be so less right now, so that it's like, what do we have to do to save this apostolate and keep it going? What do we have to do, right? And I was already thinking that way, but I feel more driven in, sort of like what is the economic supply and demand, right? It's kind of the same thing. It's like, well, there's a lot less supply. Is there a greater demand for the work that we do, despite the fact that there's less to work with? When there's more, like last year, we were able to step back and do the scoping, right? And figure out what is it that we really need to do. We had the quote unquote luxury to be able to do that, to really refocus our energies. Now there's less, but I feel like now there's a lot more that we could be doing with less. Like it's like, I think about, and you and I talked about this, like how are we actively daily promoting the Rosary? What are we doing?
Actively is a good word, because we just heard in a homily a couple weeks ago how Mary did not love passively. She was an active lover of her children. And that idea of loving actively is a Marian idea. It's a Marian way, not idea. She did it. And it's like, when Father Jack preached that a couple weeks ago, I wrote that down in my journal at Mass. This is something we need to do. We need to copy Mary here like this. And so I actually reread that before Mass yesterday, so that I could not lose those notes and ideas that I wrote down. It's like, no, I need to reread this to let it marinate in my soul. Like, how to love actively is a challenge when we want to just be passive so often. And you think about how the world wars against the Christian, the secular way up against the Christian way. The secular way is passively sit, watch Netflix, passively sit, scan YouTube, passively just take in, but don't do anything, but just give me your eyes. Okay. Like, that is the way of the world. And that weakens us. And it makes our Christian walk harder, because we're so, well, can I be Christian by just sitting on this chair and I'll just think about loving you and I'm Christian? Wow, that's awful. Awful. Okay. Like, we have to get up and actively love. That means doing something. That means going out of our comfort zone and loving till it almost hurts just a little bit. Anyway.
At the same time, and this is what I wrote down from Father Jack, and I think this was from the same homily. So I keep...
Probably because he hasn't celebrated that liturgy in a while.
But he said, Mary is a living tabernacle that brought Christ to Elizabeth and the world. He says, God speaks in a still, small voice. And that's true, right? I'm always like, all right, God, make huge things happen. Bring a huge donor in to change things in a huge way, and
that's
make
the
us,
way we want to see it,
give us huge downloads and huge, and it's in the small little things. Coley's been listening for years, one little episode at a time, and each of these episodes, I think, well, that was a terrible episode. That was a terrible one. That wasn't a good one. There's whatever. And yet here Coley has just entered into the sacrament of holy matrimony and has looked to these shows for years as mentorship for marriage. And others have said similar things. There have been, I was trying to find it, many people have, in comments, as they made donations or in the prayer request, said, I look to you two as a model of marriage. I'm like, that's a huge burden and gift and blessing. But it's in the small things, right? God speaks in a still small voice. The fruit of Mary's womb is the bread of life come down from heaven. We must be silent. Still, God is now about big plans, but small steps. That jumped out at me. So what are the small steps that we can be doing in 2025 that will help fulfill God's big plans? What are the small steps? What are the small things? And I've been, my temptation at this time of the year, and it's a dangerous temptation. And this year I'm writing things down. I'm writing ideas down, but you may have noticed.
You don't want to read that out loud. I don't.
Well, hold on. Well, no, these are ideas, but let me finish my thought.
Sorry.
And my statement that you may have noticed if you do get our newsletters, and during the giving campaign, I send out a lot of them. You may have noticed that I have made very few promises of what we're going to deliver in the next year. And that I also think that has had a negative impact on the amount of donations that have come in. Because like when I say we're going to do these 10 things, and we oftentimes will hit most of them, not all of them, but we'll hit a lot of our goals. That motivates people to give. I'm focusing more on the way that people have been changed already, with the hope that donors will see us, that we're going to be able to keep doing these kinds of things. But I've been writing down, the monthly, the prayer request thing that we just did. How do I do that more frequently? Do I do it monthly? Do we just make that commitment? Every month we're going to go and pray for you before the Blessed Sacrament, and just make that an ongoing thing. How do I automate the setting up of that so that I'm not sitting down every month and figuring out the technical solution, but it's just like the people can always be going in. How do we have so that people can actually feel like they're members of Rosary Army, like they're joining something? What does that look like? And these are not, I'm not making promises that this is what we're going to do,
right.
But these are my thoughts, right? There's parts of the website and sub websites that go along with Rosary Army that have just sort of been sitting latent. And part of, I've been thinking of what do we do with it? What do we do with it? And you can think and think and think, but never get anything done until you pull a trigger and be willing to make some horrible mistakes. So what horrible small step mistakes am I willing to make at the risk of it actually being a success and a part of God's big plan, right? What I see is all the ways it can go wrong. God sees all the ways it can go right. So back to what I said at the beginning, how I always assume that when something good happens, something bad's going to happen. I think God sees anytime something bad happens, that something good can come out of it. So how do I start thinking like God does, right?
Well, success out of failure versus failure
from
success.
How many times have I said over the years that God can take any negative situation, God can take your sinfulness, and he can bring healing and redemption from it. God can bring your woundedness and bring some radical change of life out of it. It's hard for me at this time of the year not to think about, at the end of 2017, beginning of 2018, right around this time of the year is when I had a nervous breakdown. And I ended up in an intensive outpatient program and was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder that I have still been suffering for these last few years in recovering from it. And it's been a lot of hard work to do that. Well, God allowed me to fall to my lowest so that he can bring me to this point where my main focus is to try to keep this apostolate going, because I believe that every single person not only needs a rosary in their pocket, but they need to be praying that rosary every day. And that's kind of, take all these ideas that I have, they all kind of boil down to that's sort of the goal. I'm starting to think I'm not doing enough to get a rosary in every pocket and having someone pray that rosary every day. For a while we were ending the show with pray your rosary every day and do whatever it takes to be holy. How do I get a rosary in every pocket and get people to pray that rosary every day? Is that our mission? Is that what make them pray them, give them away is ultimately about? Is that what the educational arm, these podcasts, this mentorship is about? Because getting a rosary in the hands of everyone, great. But I got to tell you, every time I'm driving around and I see a rosary hanging from someone's windshield or their rearview mirror, it kind of makes me sad. Not that people don't take that off of the rearview mirror and pray it, but I've never seen when I'm sitting at a stoplight, I've never seen someone suddenly have an epiphany and reach up and I'm just I know you can go, well, my point is I have never in my life witnessed seeing someone remove a rosary from a rearview mirror as if they were going to use it. Because once it gets up there, it's kind of hard to take those things off too, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to have that hanging up, but a rosary hanging on a rearview mirror does nothing. A rosary in your pocket does nothing. It's not a magical talisman. It's not a good luck charm. It is a sacramental, but it ultimately means nothing if it's not accompanied with prayer. And so we get these rosary requests and people want these, and then we'll see people like put them around their neck or put them on their rearview mirror or put them in their pocket, but they don't actively pray it. To me, my rosary in my pocket every day is, I got to tell you, I carry my rosary in my pocket because how many times a day do I put my hand in my pocket and go, ooh, I didn't pray my rosary yet today. Mm-hmm. And that should be the mindset of like, you carry it so that you're constantly reminded, did you pray it today? And so the effort that goes into trying to promote the rosary in that way is actually quite huge, because we're in this world where the competition with the rosary in the pocket is what's in the other pocket. In the other pocket is your cell phone.
And this is really more of a male dynamic, because I'm hearing these are realities for men usually, but women have a different reality on this point. We don't have pockets in our clothes like men do.
Well, you don't, because you're an old lady.
No, but I've talked to several women, and we all have very similar complaints, all of different ages. Our fashions of today are not designed for us to easily have a rosary on our person.
Okay,
even
I thought you're talking.
Phones are not on our person for that matter.
But the phone, okay, but the phones are always in your hands.
No, I mean,
yes, honey. You go to the store and you look at any young girl. You look at any girl between the ages of 15 and 40. And I call
so they'll
I say
put
girl,
it in their back.
female.
If there's a back pocket, they'll put it in the back pocket, and that's usually how a girl would keep a phone.
I was at the grocery store the other day, and I was just trying to walk down the aisle, and I barely could, not because people are pushing their carts, but because people were staring at their phones in the grocery store aisles. So they have the phones with them. My point is, you don't worry about running into someone because their eyes are closed and they're praying the rosary. Other thing from that same homily that Father Jack said, he says, the phone is smart, but you become stupid. Most of the time spent on the iPhone should be in trying to conquer Satan in it. Mm-hmm. All right, we're kind of going off the track a little bit, and I get your point. I do. I don't want to say I'm shutting you down in regards to the difficulty of the phone or the. Okay, so your clothes are not suitable to carrying a rosary around. I don't really know what argument to give there.
Well,
my point isn't necessarily about always carry a rosary in your pocket. I guess it is, and you're right. It's more of a guy thing. So guys, you should carry a rosary in your pocket. If you're a man, you should have a rosary in your pocket.
Yeah.
And if you're a man, that rosary in your pocket should be a reminder. You better pray that rosary today. Why? Why should you pray that rosary today? Because that rosary is a meditation on the life of Jesus Christ. And while you should also be praying the Bible reading the Bible every day and saying other prayers every day and going to daily mass as often as you can. The reality is you may not have today, but you will always have an opportunity to take 20 minutes and meditate on certain aspects, certain mysteries of the life of Jesus Christ today. And every single day you should be, and I said this on that talk that we released, the Advent talk that we gave, you should be tethering your life to Jesus Christ and allowing Jesus Christ to tether himself into your life. And the rosary allows you to do that. And that is a daily practice, just like taking a shower, brushing your teeth, making your bed, pray your rosary. And so in the next year, what are we doing to promote that? How do we do that? And I wish personally for Greg Willits, it didn't require so much sitting time, so much quiet time, so much thinking time, so much writing stuff down time, so much parsing it out. I wish, and this was my prayer, and I actually wrote this down yesterday at Christmas Mass. Dear God, I just wish that you would give me more wisdom to know how to do this work, and that you would give me more strength to be able to do it better. And I can do it with just the money that we've raised, or if you bring in even more for the giving campaign. I can do it if I just had better wisdom to see how it's impacting people. That's enough. Just, I wish I could remember emails like Coley's for longer than 5 minutes, so that I can see that's what we just need to keep doing these things. We need to mentor people to pray their rosaries every day. So what do I want for 2025? That. I want to get a rosary to everyone, but most people have 10 fingers. You already got a portable rosary that you're carrying around with you every day. There's oftentimes you and I will go walking, and I realize, I changed into my walking pants.
Yeah.
I didn't put my rosary in it. Doesn't matter. We still pray our rosary when we go for our walk, because we each have 10 fingers, so we can still pray a decade.
Yeah, and that's really it right there. And that's what I think more women need to remember, especially if women are more likely to not have it on them. Even at home, it's set down somewhere. It's kept someplace else that they have to go to get it and then pray with it. But you always have your 10 fingers. And eventually, one day, not now, but I could probably do a little tutorial on how to pray it with in a fun way, using your fingers and the way that your fingers are made. That's not this method of counting, which is like you don't know where you are, really. You can still get lost. So, but you're right. You have your 10 fingers always with you. You can do that. You can pray that way.
I got to tell you, you've how I said, I wish I didn't have to sit and I'm constantly just I'm mulling over problems and trying to figure out the solutions.
Yeah.
And so often the solutions don't come to me, and it's very difficult. And I would say that's 99% of my job with the Rosary Army, is trying to figure out solutions to things that I ultimately don't come up with solutions for. But you've given me a new problem. I'm kind of bothered by what you said of the logistical problem. If what you said is true, that most women aren't carrying around their rosary, that bothers me.
And it's a cultural thing. It's not like it's just been this way. This is a thing.
But the reason why it bothers me is like, okay, well then what's the solution? How do I make it so that the rosary is always within arm's reach of those women? Because you're right. I've been thinking about it from a guy's perspective. Guys, put a dang rosary in a rosary in your pocket.
Yeah.
I mean, after a while, I felt like we just saw something recently. It's like the problem with getting older is you got more things to be angry about because you've been, or something like that. I felt like we just watched something that said something like that. And, the longer I'm doing this, it's a temptation to get irritated. I'm like, we've been saying this for a long time. Make them, pray them, give them away. You should always have one on you. But I've just assumed that women have the same issue. But now, after 20 years, you've pointed out to me that that's not the case. And I'm like, okay, well, then what do you do about that?
And I think what the solution is what you just gave.
The fingers? That doesn't sound like a good solution long term, though.
I think it's a wonderful, because I have used it. Once our son Ben discovered this other method that was just more functional and practical. It was a new way of looking at your own fingers as like a little bit more like an abacus idea.
Yeah, I get it.
And like, oh, wait a minute. I've been using my fingers wrong all this time. Now he very simply explained a way that I could use my fingers without getting lost. And I'm like, I like that. So now when I'm going on a walk, I don't worry about not having the physical rosary because I use my fingers that way, and I'll always know
Okay,
where
so
I am.
I see you doing it. Let's go ahead and do it. I mean, you should be able to do this, and we'll wrap up the show with this. How do you? So, like, I mean, for me, when I'm walking and I'm praying, I start on my left and I move over to my right, and I start it with fists in both hands. And so, again, if a decade is 10 Hail Marys, I say the Our Father with a clenched fist, and I say the Glory Be at the end with a clenched fist. And I start with my thumb and I move down this way. And then I start with my pinky and I go all the way down. The trick is making sure that you're actually meditating on which mystery you're on, because if I'm driving, I have forgotten which mystery I'm actually praying. And then I'm like, well, now I'm going to pray 6 decades instead of 5 just to make sure I'm doing it all. So does yours, explain yours.
Okay.
How do you track the mystery that you're on too?
With your dominant hand, so doesn't matter if you're left-handed or right-handed, one hand will track all the Hail Marys. And it does, basically, it's the Hail Marys and the conclusion prayers.
Hold your hand up to make sure, for those who are watching it.
Okay, so you see me here?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, one hand is doing all like the bulk, the interior of the rosary, but then this hand suddenly doesn't have a job to do. And this is the first decade.
I got you.
And you keep this finger kind of always in play, like first decade. I'm in the first decade.
Okay.
Then your thumb and each of your digits is separated to be each individual Hail Mary. So I just go Hail Mary, Hail Mary, Hail Mary. So I know I'm on the third Hail Mary because I have nice little dividers of my own digits here. This is the 4th, 5th, 6th, 7, 8, 9. And when I get here, I know, I'm at the end.
Okay.
And this, and this tells me I'm on the 1st.
Okay.
Now I'm on the 10th. And now I can go Glory Be.
And then the Fatima prayer.
Oh my Jesus. And then I go 2nd,
All right.
So this becomes like almost your Our Father announce the decades.
Do you keep them both up like that, or do you just do the one finger?
Or I could go 2, so when I'm walking, I just got these 2 fingers. Okay. And no matter where I am, I could be in the middle. If I just get distracted or if I lose, I go, I'm on I'm on the second mystery.
Yeah. So you use the segmentation of your digits
to be your Hail Mary.
So you're
markers.
you're not doing what I just said. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Because then
you're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Yes.
Glory Be.
Oh my Jesus.
Oh my Jesus. Ben came up with this?
I think he saw something. He saw
now
people in another country, they would use this for counting. They would use their hands for counting.
You can't do it when you're driving.
Track.
There's no way you can do it when you're driving.
No, it's not for driving.
I know.
It's good for walking around.
I'm holding up my hands as if I'm driving right now, and I've just realized that there's no way that I could do that safely. I'd be driving with my palms, and even then, no, I don't. No.
Yeah.
So because sometimes I'll do that as well.
But how I've done it driving is one hand is maintaining the steering wheel, and I'll just one loop around the steering wheel, 2 loop around the steering wheel, 3. And I could just hold the steering wheel with a very...
Yeah, that makes me nervous.
And then the other one is just over here. But ideally, that's not the driving rosary method, but it is great for when you're just standing around anywhere and your hands are idle.
Yeah.
And that could be when you're walking. It could be when you're waiting for something and you realize, I don't have my rosary with me. And the downside to just using your fingers this way is that 4, 5, and 6 looks like 7, 8, 9. And sometimes you can get so unintentionally distracted that you don't know, did I pray 5 Hail Marys or was that the 8th Hail Mary? And your fingers can't tell you quickly. So digits to the win.
There you go. So there's your educational lesson on the educational arm of Rosary. Thank you so much to all of you for being a part of what we do. Going into this next year, do ask if you would pray for us.
That we will get what we need.
That we get what we need for both the giving campaign as well as mentally and spiritually. It's, I try really hard not to focus on the negative when I'm talking to other people, but it's really hard. It's like things, people are like, hey, how's it going with the giving campaign? I'm like, I want to say, here's how it's going.
Wait till you see what God's going to do with us.
Well, but see,
I don't know.
But I've never been that kind of person to be that. But I wish I was. I wish I was. I wish I was a super positive person like that. But the reality is it's difficult. And the devil, he's been on the huge amount of offense during this giving campaign. This has been, this has been the hardest one for a few years. it's been a while since I got spiritually attacked the way that I have been during this one. But praise God for it, right? Because it has made me want to double down. It's made me want to refocus. It's actually started to make me kind of angry at the devil, of just like, just get away. It's like this is it's all right, dude. I let you mess with me enough. Now get away, because I'm gonna take out my rosary. I'm gonna beat you down with it. Is sometimes how I feel, but it's very easy to to go off balance. Thank you to all of you who have donated during this giving campaign. This is the last episode of the year, and when we come back, giving campaign is over. I've been thinking, it's like, maybe we got to change the way we're doing it. I really like only focusing on it once a year so that we don't have to ask all year long. But I don't know if that's going to be realistic for 2025, because we didn't even make 50% of what we need. So we're probably gonna have to do a Lenten giving campaign or something like that. I don't know, or God can make a miracle happen. But to those of you who gave, it means a lot. For those of you who have reached out and with kind notes, that it means a lot. We're so blessed to be able to do this work. I don't understand it. I don't know if I ever will, why God chose us to do it. But I'm very grateful that at this point in my life, this is what I'm doing, that I get to focus on promoting the rosary every day. And I just want to do a better job of it. So pray that I do. Pray that Jennifer does. Pray that our family can be the models and the stewards of this apostolate that impacts so many people every year. I'm just kind of blown away by it. So thank you. Merry Christmas to all of you.
Happy New Year, even though liturgically speaking, that's already happened. The new year began with Advent. The first day of Advent was the beginning of the church's new year, but obviously we know January 1st is a big deal for a lot of people. And if you're seeing this and it's still December and you still want to make that last little tax-deductible donation, just get it to us either by mail or through the online rosaryarmy.com/donate.
Yep.
And if you send in a check, just so that you know, for financially, I will, depending on when we receive it, sometimes the mail is super slow and I don't actually get it till January, but I look at the date that you wrote the check and I honor that. So if it's written in December, you'll get it for that tax year.
Well, and it's got to be, it's not just the date.
Postmarked.
It's got to be postmarked. Yeah. So you can't mail it to us on January 2nd, but date it December 31st.
As long as it's postmarked in December, I honor that no matter when I receive it. So you're good there.
So if you're watching the video, I'll put our mailing address up on the screen if you wanted to write a check and send it to us that way. And then, of course, rosaryarmy.com/donate. We love hearing from you, your kind words. We don't always get to respond directly to the emails, but, they matter. Feedback at rosaryarmy.com, or we also love seeing your wonderful comments on each of these videos. If you're watching it right now, make sure you're liking and subscribing to it. Hit the notification button so you find out when we post a new show. Share it with other people. That helps a lot. And leave a comment down below. We love reading those things. I can't comment to every single one of them just because I don't have that superpower. But we love reading it, and we read every single one of them. And so thank you so much to all of you for being a part of Rosary Army. We really do consider you to be Rosary Army soldiers. We consider you to be a part of this ministry, whether you're making, praying, and giving them away, whether you're using the podcast as a way of growing in your faith, whether you're part of School of Mary, whatever it is. If you're just using one part of anything that we're attempting to do with Rosary Army, we consider you a part of this mission and this ministry, and we're glad you're here. So until next time, make them,
pray them,
and give them away. God bless. Happy New Year.
Bye.
Merry Christmas, and we'll talk to you again soon.